The relationship between the police and the favelas of Rio de Janeiro is deeply rooted in a history of social exclusion and systemic violence. From their inception, Rio's favelas have been marginalized communities, denied basic services and opportunities. This neglect created a vacuum, allowing for the rise of criminal elements and solidifying the perception of favelas as dangerous spaces in need of control. Since the early 20th century, the police force has been used as an instrument of repression rather than protection in these communities. Their presence was characterized by brutality, corruption, and a disregard for the human rights of residents. Instead of addressing the root causes of crime and poverty, the government opted for a strategy of containment and control. This approach only deepened the distrust between the police and the policed, creating a cycle of violence and resentment that continues to this day. The police were seen not as protectors, but as an occupying force, further marginalizing the already vulnerable populations of the favelas. The lack of trust in law enforcement has had a profound impact on the social fabric of these communities, hindering development and perpetuating cycles of violence. This historical context is crucial for understanding the ongoing challenges and complexities of policing in Rio's favelas. The latter half of the 20th century witnessed a dramatic escalation in violence within Rio's favelas, largely attributed to the rise of drug trafficking. As drug cartels gained power and influence, they established strongholds within these communities, exploiting the lack of state presence and preying on the vulnerability of residents. The government responded with increasingly militarized tactics. Large-scale police operations, often involving heavily armed officers, helicopters, and armored vehicles, became commonplace. These operations were frequently characterized by indiscriminate violence, resulting in civilian casualties, property damage, and widespread fear. The escalation of violence had a devastating impact on daily life in the favelas. Residents were caught in the crossfire between police forces and criminal factions, living in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. The cycle of violence became deeply entrenched, with each police operation seemingly generating more violence in its wake. The militarized approach failed to address the root causes of drug trafficking, and instead served to further traumatize and alienate the communities it claimed to protect. The history of police operations in Rio's favelas is replete with instances of excessive force, extrajudicial killings, and human rights violations. From the early days of police incursions to the present day, these communities have borne the brunt of a security policy that often prioritizes force over dialogue and community engagement. The names of favelas like Jacarezinho, Vila Cruzeiro, and Complexo do Alemão are etched in the collective memory of Rio's residents as grim reminders of the devastating consequences of this approach. Each of these communities has been subjected to large-scale police operations that resulted in significant loss of life, often with little to no accountability for the perpetrators. The 2021 massacre in Jacarezinho, where 28 people were killed in a single operation, stands as a stark example of the human cost of this militarized approach. The incident sparked outrage and protests, both within Brazil and internationally, highlighting the urgent need for police reform and a fundamental shift in the state's approach to security in marginalized communities. These operations, while often framed as necessary measures to combat crime, have had a devastating impact on the social fabric of the favelas. They have eroded trust in law enforcement, instilled fear in residents, and perpetuated a cycle of violence that continues to plague these communities. In the late 2000s, the Brazilian government launched the Unidade de Polícia Pacificadora (UPP) program, a seemingly innovative approach to policing in the favelas. The program aimed to establish a permanent police presence in these communities, with a focus on community policing, social services, and improving the relationship between residents and law enforcement. The UPP program was initially met with cautious optimism. The installation of UPP units in some favelas led to a decrease in homicides, improved access to public services, and a renewed sense of safety for some residents. The program was touted as a success story, a model for other cities grappling with similar challenges. However, the promise of the UPP program was short-lived. The program was plagued by a lack of long-term investment in social programs, corruption within the police force, and a gradual shift back towards militarized tactics. As a result, drug traffickers eventually regained control in many favelas, leading to a resurgence in violence. The failure of the UPP program serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the limitations of a purely security-focused approach to addressing complex social issues. It underscored the need for a more holistic strategy, one that addresses the underlying social and economic inequalities that contribute to crime and violence in the first place. Section 5. A cycle of violence. Continues policing in the present day. Despite years of criticism and calls for reform, police operations in Rio's favelas continue to be characterized by violence, impunity, and a disregard for human rights. The cycle of violence that has plagued these communities for decades remains unbroken, with devastating consequences for residents. In recent years, there has been a concerning increase in the frequency and lethality of police raids. These operations, often conducted with little regard for due process or the safety of residents, have resulted in numerous civilian casualties, including children and innocent bystanders. The April 21, 2025 mega operation, which saw 2,000 police officers deployed across 10 favelas, is a stark reminder of the ongoing militarization of security policy in Rio. This operation, like many before it, resulted in significant disruption, fear, and allegations of human rights abuses. The continued reliance on these heavy-handed tactics has done little to address the root causes of crime and violence in Rio's favelas. Instead, it has served to further alienate residents, erode trust in law enforcement, and perpetuate a cycle of violence that seems increasingly difficult to break. The human cost of this ongoing violence is immeasurable. Residents of Rio's favelas, particularly young people, live with the constant threat of violence and the trauma of witnessing or experiencing police brutality firsthand. The psychological toll of living under these conditions is profound. The militarization of their communities has had a devastating impact on the daily lives of favela residents. Children are often forced to stay home from school during police operations, disrupting their education and reinforcing the cycle of poverty. Businesses are forced to close, impacting livelihoods and economic development. The sound of gunfire has become a grim soundtrack to life in many favelas, a constant reminder of the precariousness of their existence. This climate of fear has a corrosive effect on the social fabric of these communities, leading to a breakdown of trust and a sense of hopelessness. The stories of Rafaela Figueiredo de França and her autistic daughter, forced to seek refuge from the terrifying noise and chaos of police raids, are heartbreakingly commonplace. They highlight the often overlooked impact of this violence on the most vulnerable members of society. Despite the challenges they face, residents of Rio's favelas have not remained silent in the face of injustice. Community movements, human rights organizations, and independent journalists have emerged as powerful voices, denouncing police brutality, demanding accountability, and advocating for alternative approaches to security. The ADPF of the Favelas case, currently before the Supreme Court, represents a significant legal challenge to the status quo. This case, which seeks to limit police violence and ensure the protection of human rights during operations, is a testament to the resilience and determination of favela residents in their fight for justice. Community organizations have also played a vital role in providing support to victims of police violence, documenting abuses, and advocating for policy changes. They have organized protests, raised awareness about the issue both domestically and internationally, and worked tirelessly to hold those responsible for human rights violations accountable. The tireless efforts of these individuals and organizations are crucial for shining a light on the ongoing human rights crisis in Rio's favelas and pushing for meaningful change. Their voices, often marginalized and ignored by those in power, represent a powerful force for justice and a testament to the enduring spirit of these communities. The ongoing crisis in Rio's favelas demands a fundamental rethinking of security policy, one that moves beyond the failed paradigm of militarization and towards a more humane, effective, and sustainable approach. This requires a shift in mindset from viewing favela residents as threats to be contained to recognizing them as citizens deserving of protection, dignity, and opportunity. A more effective approach to security in Rio's favelas must prioritize investment in social programs, economic development, and community policing. Addressing the root causes of crime, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity, is essential for breaking the cycle of violence that has plagued these communities for generations. Community policing, based on building trust and relationships between law enforcement and residents, is crucial for creating a safer and more just environment. This requires investing in training for police officers, emphasizing de-escalation techniques, and fostering cultural sensitivity and respect for human rights. The voices of favela residents must be central to any effort to reform security policy. Their lived experiences, perspectives, and insights are essential for developing effective and sustainable solutions that address the unique challenges they face. The path towards a more just and peaceful future for Rio's favelas is long and arduous, but not without hope. The ongoing struggle of favela residents for their basic human rights, coupled with the tireless work of community organizations and human rights advocates, offers a glimmer of hope for meaningful change. Achieving this vision requires a sustained commitment from the government to addressing the systemic inequalities that fuel violence and marginalization. This includes investing in education, healthcare, job creation, and social programs that empower residents and break the cycle of poverty. It also requires a fundamental transformation of the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they serve. This means ending the culture of impunity, holding officers accountable for human rights abuses, and creating a police force that is truly committed to protecting and serving all citizens, regardless of their socio-economic status. The journey towards justice and equality in Rio's favelas is a collective one, requiring the participation and commitment of all segments of society. Only through a sustained and collaborative effort can we hope to break the cycle of violence and create a future where all residents have the opportunity to live in safety, dignity, and peace.